Creasphere and what we do, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker of today, Christopher Gantrup-Marino, the Chief of Innovation of UNICEF, sharing some insights about innovation and to create impact for other children. And I think that is a very, very important topic, especially in this world today where everything is virtual, from homeschooling and etc. So Christopher, I would like to welcome you on stage. Thank you very much for joining and for sharing some insights about your activities today. So Christopher, nice to meet you and welcome on stage.
Thank you very much. Just a sound check, everything's working?
Yes, sounds great. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. Thank you very much for allowing me to present here. I have the pleasure today of being able to talk about how we at UNICEF work with product innovation as a way of creating impact for children. I have a background in working with both startup and venture capital. Still am involved quite a lot in those kind of things. I sit on the board of a couple of impact venture capital funds, chairman of one, where we invest using standard venture capital tools. And have a fund with LPs, but with a very specific impact aim. The presentation I'll be giving you today is sort of from the other side of the table. So this is not a presentation of how we innovate, but rather how we specify needs and drive innovation in order to meet the needs of kids. So fundamentally, our idea is that we want to activate the creative capabilities of businesses, entrepreneurs, innovators throughout the world in order to improve the life of kids. And I'm looking forward to describe to you how we try to do that and how we sort of try to flip the idea of innovation upside down, if you will, exactly based on this premise, realizing that we'll never be a great innovator. We'll be great at understanding these needs and then hopefully in activating people like you guys in trying to help the kids most in need. So product innovation, which is what I'm responsible for throughout UNICEF, sits as part of our supply function. We procure for more than $4 billion a year worth of supplies to meet the needs of kids. UNICEF is an extremely unique institution in that we are present in virtually all countries in the world. We have what's called country offices in all developing countries that work in close collaboration with the governments. And then in donor countries and Western countries, we have various fundraising offices. So we're really present all throughout the world. I sit as part of the supply division, as I said, and the aim of that is to support our country office activities, including around emergencies, to better meet the needs of kids. So fundamentally, we aim to enable the availability of fit for purpose and value for money products that can contribute towards the need of kids. And we do that by working closely in partnerships with our field partners, governments, businesses, and other program partners. And sort of in essence, you can say it's about turning ideas into tangible solutions that will improve the lives of the most vulnerable children. So if you look at how we fundamentally work, our core idea is to understand unmet needs in the fields. So that can be either in the sense that people want to be able to procure a product and they cannot find something suitable, or they are already procuring a product and this is not living up to the needs, so they want an improved product. Once we see such a need, we go in and try to understand that in detail, not just from an end user perspective, but sort of the whole system, including who will the buyer be, what's the regulatory requirement, what's the supply process for such a product, et cetera, et cetera. Based on that understanding, we then scan the market to see to what degree there are products out there that can meet that needs. If there are products, we shoot the product straight to scale, as we call it, which means we go in then and procure that product. So put the product on our supply catalog, UNICEF supply catalog, and then work actively to drive demand, so to recommend to governments to buy this product or to deploy it through one of our own activities in terms of the emergencies or programs we are running. If there are products available that have not been validated for our specific use, we go in and validate that product. We have the basic premise that we don't do efficacy and effectiveness. Those of you involved in health innovation will probably know what that's about. We only do sort of the soft part of research, so the usability, all these kind of things. We rely on established regulatory frameworks to say when a product is good enough. Once we've got that validation and we believe it lives up to the aim that we have, we then continue to scale. And if there's no products available, we create what's called a target product profile that I'll dig into in a couple of slides from now that describes the desired performance of that product. We then analyze to what degree there's an appropriate and business incentive to invest in the product. If there is, then we work with businesses in a co-creative way to get it developed, and then we validate and then we scale. If there's not, we'll incentivize the R&D in various ways, including through the use of market guarantees. So basically us saying, hey, here's the need, and we guarantee worth a certain amount of offtake in order to incentivize that investment. And then we go through the subsequent steps. So unpacking these a little bit more, the number one question I typically get when presenting on what we do is, where do these ideas come from? Where do we get the understanding of these needs? And anyone who's ever worked with innovation, which all of you have, will know how difficult it is to understand needs. I think many coming in to the innovation space for the first time will say, oh, you just go out and ask people what they want. And we all know how much that doesn't give the answer, how complex that is, how much people do not know what they want. You can multiply that complexity by a lot in these environments, because you fundamentally have people that don't have anything. And when you ask them what they want, they'll say they want everything or anything, and they are not paying for these products themselves. So there isn't sort of the payment issue. So you have to truly understand these needs in terms of not just what do the beneficiaries, what do the children want, but also what do those want that are going to be paying for these. I like to say that the fundamental problem in what we're trying to do is that there is no customers, in that these environments we're trying to support have no money. Yet again, the reason we exist is that there is no customers, because if they were, we wouldn't have to be in the game. Then businesses would sort of take care of it by itself. But we try to really go in and identify these opportunities where there is a basis to be able to buy these products, but a gap. We then, based on that, try to understand the business case of fundamentally what impact are we creating for what investment, including everything. So rather than a profit perspective, this is an impact business case. And then dependent on whether or not the products are out there, we'll create this target product profile. So the target product profile has become a very important institution for us, in that was sort of how we transitioned out of this sort of innovation focus, if you will. So earlier in the days, we approached it, if you go way back in the days, as if we were going to be the innovator. And then we wanted, which way too often got us involved in being sort of engaged in one specific product. And this made us hone in on this need-driven approach. So the target product profile tries to communicate the desired performance of a product. So it doesn't specify exactly what the product is. It describes what performance do you want to have solved, or do you want to live up to? It's sort of a jobs done perspective, if you will, looking at a Clayton Christensen perspective here. And then we communicate that out broadly, and then we invite everybody in the world to come and show us what would the best way be to solve this issue. During the R&D phase, it's one of our most basic principles that we don't innovate anything and we don't invest in anything directly, because we don't want to be married to any one solution. Our expertise is in understanding these needs and then driving a class of products forward that we can then procure and scale. So we always try to work in a non-exclusive manner until we've seen enough development that we can start procuring, in which case we principally always want to procure multiple products to meet the different needs. But we work a lot in this place. We try to engage the developers to get clarity around the TPPs. It's always the cheapest investment we can make to get clarity around what these issues are. So we want to avoid that innovators, investors are going down the wrong path. And we all know how much difference there is between understanding a good need and then having the product developed. So we really try to have a lot of dialogue throughout and have industry consultations where we bring people together. We also have what's called a co-creation process that we're really proud of, where we, after we've done the procurement, so this is a little while into it, once we can see that there's products available, then we issue a tender, select based on competitive processes a number of companies or innovators to work with. And then we basically say to them, hey, now you're going to go on a journey with us where you're going to invest in optimizing your products based on learnings you get from field trials that we set up. And then you're going to improve the products through each of these steps. And you're going to do that with your own investment based on the promise that only those that are in this group will now be allowed to bid for the final tender, so to bid for the final offering. So we're always trying to play around with these risk reward ratios seen from the perspective of businesses, to trying to ensure that there is a sufficient rewards in investing in these things, that it's worthwhile the risk to invest. always remembering that we are not sitting on a pool of money. We have to go out and find that money from donors or elsewhere in order to do these things. So we always want to ensure that we are most efficient in this approach in order to meet the needs of kids in the cheapest way possible. And there's a number of ways that developers, innovators can access these TPPs. So if you type in TPPs UNICEF, you'll get to them online. It's a lot of people are looking into these, and we are increasingly trying to issue these together with other UN agencies such as WHO. During the scale phase, that's when the real challenges exist, as I'm sure you all know. And this is, as I said, not the least the case in this environment. We try to fundamentally use our comparative advantage in terms of having a very trusted brand. So we are a very trusted institution throughout the globe that can convene a lot of stakeholders. And especially we are an institution that have direct access to advising governments in developing settings, so in low resource settings, on which products they should procure. So that's really the role we take on ourselves. Scale is not easy in this environment. Sort of looking into traditional theories around scale, so this could be product adoption life cycle or crossing the chasm, as some of you may know, something like this. Many of you have probably learned that in order to get a product to scale, you got to work with the early adopters, because whenever a product is launched, you have the issue of unit cost being higher than perceived value. I often use the example of the iPhone on this one, just because that's one we all know, right? Where when it was first launched, we all thought, great, no way I'm going to pay $1,000 for this thing. And then Apple is extremely good at pushing up perceived value. In other situations, you have unit costs going down with commoditization, etc. But the point of the matter is that you got to work with the early adopters to overcome the challenges you always have with an innovation when an innovative product when it's first launched, until you have the positive deviance, so perceived value being higher than cost. The problem is in our environment that early adopters do not really exist. It's a very commodity-oriented way of looking at things. And as such, you have many innovators that are moving around and being told, you got to get proof up and price down. And we all know how difficult that is if you don't have volume to do so with. Therefore, we try to do what we can in terms of doing the appropriate trials, recommending to governments, etc., to push up that perceived value, and then do what we also do well, which is to actively work with procurement to push in competition, drive down cost, so that you sort of get the downwards trend on the cost and the upwards trend on value proof, thereby resulting in the product to be adopted massively. Just very quickly, as I guess this is less exciting compared to many of the other things, but we have a very well-established structure. I'm one of these people that believe that creativity and processes is mutually reinforcing if done the right way. We try to create a classic approach where we marry a stage gate approach with a more agile approach. We have it all governed. We're part of the UN, so we got to make sure that everything we do can live up to very tough audit scrutiny. And within the broad space of development, we are well known for having built a process that works, that can sustain these things. We have been audited, and that still allows for creativity and movement. So it's not a small thing. It's really, really important when you're part of an institution like this that you got these things in order. This is an overview of the portfolio as we have it right now, around 17 projects. I'll touch on a couple of them throughout, pretty balanced throughout. It's all the different program areas that UNICEF is involved in, education, health, etc. It's always with a product focus, so physical products that we are honing in on, and sort of balanced throughout the different stages of development. This is an overview of the closed projects, something that I'm quite proud of. We all know how important it is to close down projects quickly if they don't work well. And a failure is not a failure. If you had a valid hypothesis, you were efficient in your learning, and you concluded that whatever hypothesis you had weren't true. In a sort of political environment, you need to really be tough at these things. Otherwise, there can be a tendency to sort of being in love with these projects and continuing them for too long. But we've been good at installing a good discipline around this. So we've closed down a lot of projects based on good, solid analysis of that these were not worthwhile pursuing anymore. And basically what we're looking at here again is impact versus cost, or versus risk versus profit versus cost, right? So same principle, just from an impact angle. A bit of numbers just to get a sense for the type of stuff we are looking at. 26 TPPs launched, 43 field trials, 51 new products in our catalog, 33 projects since 13, 15, actually I think it's 17 PIPs currently active. A number of PIPs have been fully transitioned to the business to standards, and a few still existing. So just a few comments here in the end on sort of some learnings and some of the concrete projects. So here, two of our projects that are going extremely well these days. And of course, well, in this context should be looked at that we are really impacting things greatly. So the first is this non-pneumatic anti-shock garment, which is for postpartum hemorrhage, or PPA it's called, so heavy bleeding after birth, which kills 130,000 women a year. Pretty scary. That has a lot of impact, not just on the mother that dies, but also on the children, the families that are left behind. This is a very simple product. It's sort of a wetsuit you wrap around the woman in order to stabilize her, ensuring that blood flows to the central part so she can be transported. We have now worked systematically across a number of countries and are seeing a sort of a hockey stick pickup in this product. And we're really trying to learn from that in order to systematize what do we need to do in order to advise the government to buy this up. The other one is oxygen. As well as antibiotics, which is absolutely essential in the current crisis we're in. There's 800,000 kids dying from pneumonia every year. So just, taste on that a little bit, including in the current crisis we're in. It's a lot of children dying for this stuff. It's the single biggest killer. So we are making a big effort in terms of providing access to oxygen and having a lot of success in really scaling that up. The other part is this co-creation. So this was what I touched on before. Here's two examples of where we've done that with great success. So our high performance tents and our disability friendly latrine add-on, both products that are currently in a catalog and being scaled in emergencies with a lot of positive impact. So here we followed that process of we issued a TPP, then we issued an RFP, selected a number, so 3 companies on the tent example, 2 companies in the latrine add-on, worked with them, took them on field trials. The tent we field trialed in Afghanistan, Uganda, and the Philippines, and the latrine add-on in Angola and Bangladesh. And then throughout each of these steps, we asked for the companies to optimize the product based on the learnings, all based on the promise to be able to procure. And then this one, a couple of examples of mistakes. So these are all projects that we managed to not get moving. We made the mistake of not having a good enough understanding of the need. A laptop in a box, a smart pump to do predictive maintenance, and our jerry cans, both all illustrating how difficult it is to truly understand that need, as well as how humble you gotta be. So especially on all 3, we were too involved in the development, so that those all contributed for us to not step into these things. So final slide, what have we sort of concluded, or what have we learned in a condensed format? So first, this is maybe not so relevant if you're a startup, but innovation is possible within public procurement. So many say it's not. We believe it is, and we've shown how we can really drive innovation. You don't have to be an innovator to be innovative. UNICEF can use its influence to drive innovation. An institution like this one is incredible, and the impact can be gigantic of that stuff. You don't have to be that creative person in order to do so. And then the crux is continuous iteration with the right people. You all know that one. And then the very last one, which is what we focus a lot on, rather trying to be someone we are not, leverage what you're great at. So with that, thank you very much. I hope it provided value to you all. I'm hoping to meet some of you in the subsequent steps. So it's subsequent activities throughout the day.
Thank you very much for this insightful keynote, Christopher. I think we all learned a lot, and especially some sentences that I put down. This a failure is not a failure. I think no matter in which part of this industry you are at, it's really good for all of us to know and to leverage what you're good at. And it's really impressive to see what you have implemented over the last, since 2013. And thank you for sharing also your procedure and your processes and your structure of how you're getting there. I think it's very motivating, and it's great to see what you have implemented in the field. So thank you very much.